Good morning, everybody. I am a student of Christ University. I'm doing my MSc in Psychology HRDM. It's my last year, and I have completed my research on the topic correlational study between employee engagement, workload, and stress levels after layoffs happened in EdTech firms. So the co-author and my mentor for this research is Ms. Priyadarshini ma'am. She is my mentor. She's from Department of Psychology, Christ University as well. So starting with the overview of the research. So I started this research approx 1.5 years ago, wherein the COVID pandemic has just stopped showing its effects and organizations were facing so much losses and they were trying to recover through various methods, including laying off the employees. And one of the hardest hit industries in this layoff was EdTech firms, which is very less talked about. It is not just in India, but globally as well. EdTechs were considered as the most affected industry after the COVID pandemic. So that's how the research started. There was a need not just to understand the effect of layoffs on the victims of layoffs, but as well as on the survivors of the layoffs. That is the people who are still in their organization after the organization has laid off its employees. So the research is about finding the correlation between workload of the surviving employees, their stress levels, and their engagement levels. So for this research, So layoff is, to understand layoff, it is a stressful situation, not just for the organization, but for its employees as well, right? So you never know who will be the next employee who will be laid off, what will be the future of the organization. The organization and the employees both are in a tense situation wherein nobody knows what is going to happen the next day. So for conducting this research, I use 3 scales for all the 3 variables. That is, first is the workplace stress scale, which is developed by Marlin and company. So this stress scale has 8 items which measures different aspects of stress, and it is a 5-point Likert scale. The second scale that I used is the job engagement scale, which is developed by Rich et al. And Rich theory is also used in my research, that is the work overload theory. So work engagement, sorry. So this scale is a 18-item questionnaire which covers 3 dimensions of job engagement, that is cognitive engagement, emotional engagement, and physical engagement. Considering all these 3 types of engagements are very different from each other and affect how an employee is behaving at the workplace to a large extent. This is as well a 5-point Likert scale. The third questionnaire that I used is the quantitative workload inventory developed by Paul Spector and Steve. This is again a 5-item self-report questionnaire. So it is a quantitative research design wherein I involved 121 employees that are working in EdTech firms presently, pan-India, between the age group of 22 to 60 years. And the data was collected through convenience sampling as well as snowball sampling method. So now coming to data collection and analysis. The data was collected through Question Pro website. So how I started was first a consent form was given to all the employees, confirming that they have agreed to be a part of the study. They have agreed to give the demographic details. And lastly, these 3 questionnaires were used. So after we got all the data, we analyzed the data by using the statistical tool called JAMOVI. Firstly, the normality test was conducted, and based on those results, the Pearson correlation was used to establish the relationship between 3 variables because the data was not normally distributed. So based on the data collected and as well as the normality test, three hypotheses were developed. First was that increase in workload will cause lower engagement among employees. Second hypothesis is that increase in workload will cause higher stress among employees. And the third hypothesis was that increase in stress would cause lower engagement among employees. So after doing all the data analysis through Jamuri and using the Pearson correlation, what I found was that when the correlation between employee engagement and their stress levels was negatively correlated, which means that as employees' stress increased, their engagement also decreased. So a significance value was achieved when the data was analyzed, and based on that, the R value was achieved. Coming to stress and workload, it was a positive correlation of 0.37, which means that as stress increased, as workload increased, the stress of the employees also increased. Coming to workload and engagement, the correlation achieved was minus 0.25, which means it was a negative correlation, which meant that as the workload of the employees increased, their engagement as well decreased. So what we found out in the entire study was there was negative correlation between stress and job engagement. As I discussed, as the stress of the employees increase, as their workload increase, their engagement levels as well as decreased. So the study found that all the hypotheses were accepted in the entire study, and it was found that there has to be some mechanism that needs to be placed for not just the victims of the layoffs, but as well as the survivors of the layoffs. What it means is that people usually talk about the people who have been laid off the organization and how they are facing challenges to get new jobs in their lives, but nobody considers the situation of the survivors. To, for example, if my team member gets laid off, then all the responsibility will fall upon me. My stress will increase, my workload will increase. I'll have to give more hours to my job. That's how it affects the survivors of the organization. I would be fearful the entire time whether I'm the one who will be laid off next, right? So these were the things that we, these were the conclusions that we achieved through the entire research. However, some of the limitations that needs to be talked about this study is that since the research was conducted primarily on EdTech employees, it is difficult to generalize in other industries. Maybe more research can be done on this topic only, and we can take employees from other industries as well. We can increase our sample size. We can also do a comparison between how layoffs are affecting different employees, considering different in the employees belonging to different industries. And the data was collected online, so there is always a chance of extraneous variable playing a role, which cannot be controlled by the researcher. However, the research has a lot of potential to be conducted at a larger scale to understand how layoff impacts the survivors of the industries or the companies. We can also include factors like survivor syndrome, which is a very new concept that people are now talking about. On how survivor syndrome is basically how survivors feel after their colleagues are laid off. We can the other factors that are included is employee motivation as well as job satisfaction levels. So this is what my research was about, and I'm open to questions now.